Game number 1 is here. Let's kick this weekend off. Let's have some fun. It's Friday, and we have a lot of Fortnite action in front of us. Unfortunately for you guys, it's only 5 games, right? It's a fast day as far as normal FNCS dates are concerned, but nonetheless, we are here to enjoy ourselves. So, looking at the drop spot maps, looking at what has been unfolding throughout the weekend, I mean, the southern areas of the map, the Nitro Dome, the Red Line Rig, the Brutal Breachhead, these are some highly contested areas. They've continued to be contested, right, Taco, in the weeks and kind of lead up. Do you expect something different here today?
No, a lot of this is really just going to be so dependent on how these zones actually choose to pool. If they're more northern focused zones, might even have to hold the thought here for a moment, because keep in mind, Batman Booga Rapid, they were a team that the analyst desk spoke pretty fondly of, and now we're looking at them with a triple contested situation here at Grimgate. Bucky and Okis, one of those teams involved in the mix, as well as Convict and Vanillas, and this could really shake up a lot of traction here for Batman Booga and Rapid if they're not able to clean up this situation nicely.
Yeah, we've seen Bucky and Okis not necessarily find a lot of success in the early game. They have been one of the teams that have somewhat struggled. However, day in, day out, sticking to the drop week after week, leaning into the cash cups, exiting out of the cash cups. I mean, you can only imagine teams are going to become sharper and sharper as they hone their skills and master their drops. So this is going to be a scary, contested area for sure. Jumping over to EU team that is, of course, here on the NA region, on the NA circuit for this season. Mixon and Blah have continued to show us that they are in the running. They're in the middle of the pack, sometimes showing themselves up towards the top of the pack when it comes down to overall performances. This is definitely a scary team. Now, they've also mixed up their drop spot, right? They weren't landing here in the follow-up week, so this is a change happening from the gap time that we've had between the week qualifiers to now. So already we're seeing a new landscape of Fortnite competition.
Not too surprising when you factor in that forecast tower that's just a little bit northwest of Snooty Station. That's a big factor for as to why I believe we're seeing Blaha and Mixon try to take their chances at the Reclaimed Villa, even if it means a slight contestation with Aoxy and Jojo Fishy. Early contest could also mean early surge, though, but for Walker's current situation here at the Underworld, a little bit problematic, I would definitely say, especially with Batman Boo kind of hovering in his vicinity, but Ritual, Reet, they're putting so much pressure right now onto Pilot. Flicks trying to do what he can to see if he can create an opening. Pilot will get an opportunity to get nothing done here. Unfortunate circumstance, he'd already been knocked. So Ritual just now going to lead the charge here onto Flicks, but I like the mentality still from Pilot and Flicks. Pilot has had issues with getting contested early on, so trying to see if he could stake out a different position here at the Reckless Railways, but it's going to be tough when you're dealing with Reet and Ritual, who have been landing here for consistent seasons in a row.
That's right, and Reet and Ritual are honestly my pick here on the day. Put the stamp on it. For Miro in pink is another team that is inside that top 5 overall series points leaning into this, so another favorite, if you will. If anything, the conversation around Miro and pink have been somewhat subdued in lead up to this this qualifier here today, this uppers, and the mostly because we've had our focus in on the Clicks, the Vino, right? And some of these other duos, they've kind of taken the attention, I would say, away from some of the other star duos that are making an appearance this weekend. And because of that, there are some sleeper teams. You never really know. Jumping in with Pollo and Peterbot being somehow a part of those sleeper teams, right? Because they had one short performance and all of a sudden people figure, oh, they're out of the running. I wouldn't count them out. If I were you, this is definitely a team that has the highest caliber, the highest potential. And talking about Clicks and Vino, let's jump in with them. Very standard for them to be playing very far apart. If you've done any studying on their gameplay, Vino, no stranger to just playing off on his own. And of course, utilizing his Nitro to get out if he finds himself in a bad spot. But so far, so good as they start fishing for tags here.
It's a solid position as well for Veno, just trying to play this hill next to Sandy Steps, but do have to be cautious. Don't want to overpeak by any means. That friendly tag into his shields from what looked to be Aoxy or Jojo Fishy, but it's also makes sense because Veno's the one rocking the purple Huntress DMR. Whoever's got the Huntress DMR or that Enforcer Assault Rifle is usually going to be leading the charge in terms of trying to get that surge early on, and we saw earlier today in EU, a lot of the mid-game action was just so dependent on whether or not players were actually able to take advantage of having that DMR in their hands, MDF, and I'm almost kind of expecting the same course of action to take place here in NA. You might see some teams looking for those early surge trades, but again, if these zones pull more towards that desert area in that south section, I would expect that the surge thresholds would be exponentially higher because teams can just build these surge bases around those slurp cactuses, and then it becomes all that much easier to try and stake out shots, go for those exchanges, because when you get a free 30 of either white HP or shield or a little mixture of both, I mean, what risk is there really involved?
I mean, that's a great lens to put the game into, right? Like, and sometimes players don't even think that far ahead, right? Oh, the zone pulls south. Sometimes that doesn't even become a thought in your mind, but you're totally right. Given the fact that if you are based up around the cactus, teams are way more likely to start trading tags, right? And taking a little bit more risk because they have the option to do so.
Yeah, even throughout the course of yesterday's Cash Cup Finals action, I remember one lobby we saw a circumstance where the surge became such a heavy factor because there's those southern pulling zones over and over again, and players were actually getting rebooted, which was bringing a larger number back into the lobby as opposed to what things could have been. But we saw that forecast secured taking place here. Yapko, Quanti, a little bit of a precarious position. Yapko, though, ample amounts of medkits. Seems as though their heal situation is definitely on lock, so no real threat as of yet, but definitely head on a swivel at this point. Yapko and Quanti, you can tell that they are one of our teams currently seeking out their search strategy as is.
Interesting, though. He's going to opt to take the minis for the road there. Jumping in with Vanilla and Noisy. Noisy playing for the pickup right now. Tony knocked in the exchange here as there was another duo that jumped in, and to the north of the Grim Gate, there's a team lurking nearby. We know that Pink and Miro was also landing outside of the Grim Gate. They're kind of in this vicinity, also playing a little bit of a gatekeeper here, but all of these teams will have to get a move on here shortly as the pressure will begin to mount up. Think about it, only 7 teams have been dropped so far, so action taking a turn for the worse now as things slow down a bit here, coming into the mid-game. There is action happening in other places. You blinked, you missed it. The feed was lighting up. It's Vanilla's just giving us a show here on broadcast right now. This is not too far off from Noisy and company, just outside of the Grim Gate. And then we have Vert on the rotate here down in the low ground. Vert and Kai, this is a strong duo here. Vert, an exceptional solo player if you guys have never seen what he is capable of. Absolutely one of the savages up at the top here.
But at the same time, would definitely prefer to play with his duo. But knowing that he's got that kind of performance capability in the back pocket is definitely going to give a pretty massive confidence boost 9 times out of 10. Granted, when it comes to these set lobbies in semis, I think a big part of the reason everybody says the same thing, MDF. It's like you can't really be too dependent on how those Cash Cup performances are actually shaping up, because at the end of the day, it's a Cash Cup lobby versus the semis and grands lobby, and it's like a whole different standard just comes into the mix.
Take a look at this, Clix. No duo mate here. Vino knocked. Now, we do know that Vino and Clix play so far apart in the early game because they are fishing, constantly fishing for tags, for damage tags here, and it does seem like this may have backfired. The story there to be determined, essentially, but Clix, you can see what his game plan is. Stay in the zone. He's got his med kits, but he wants to venture out. He wants to find a little bit more here while he has the chance to, and possibly play for this pickup. I don't know if the game plan is going to be to wait a little bit, but it seems like he's got his marker down, so he's going right for it here and now. But before we get there, we have a fight going down. Victor and Paper, this is a team that is very much new, right, when it comes down to playing with one another here. So I don't know what to make of this potential performance.
I love the fact that they're actually in person playing together, though, both having opted to relocate to an area in Texas that'll allow them to have that lower ping possibility. And Paper, he's honestly been on fire recently, especially when he gets a hold of a hand cannon, for example. One of the few players that I think can actually reap full benefits from it. But you can see right now, first item in his loadout, he's going to put a lot of dependency into that hand cannon for it just overall damage. But if you're accurate, it is definitely a lot more potent than what the Hintress DMR can provide. At the same time though, Chimp and Scissor, they are no rollover team by any means. This is now just kind of wearing down everybody's builds. Chimp down to his final 11. Victor still trying to apply some pressure, going for a nice angle shot there, but at the same time, he's not going to be able to get any slight edge. At the same time though, knowing that Victor and Paper are the ones fully in control of this weapons bunker, Scissor and Chimp, they could look to play for time here, but at the same time, that might just work against them, MDF, because again, materials matter so much when you're approaching that mid-game aspect, and if you burn them all in an exchange that doesn't pan out in your favor, you're kind of just left with nothing except for scraps.
Take a look at that upgrade right there. Paper running down and giving Victor the SMG so he can hold his own, the burst up top. Very subtle, but very important to switch the pressure. You can see that backs off the opponents there shortly, but jumping in with Kanata and Cooper. A lot of weeks now of practice under their belt, as this is a new forming duo for the Team Dignitas here. I like what we have on sights though. DMR in hand. Look at the bases positioned everywhere. Almost a new strategy of sorts, right? These hyper protected domes all around.
I think the main thing to consider though is that here at the Nitrodrome, there is an ample amount of slurp cactuses to essentially build your surge base on. And that's a rather reoccurring strategy as well for Kanata and Cooper. Wouldn't be surprised if there's a slurp cactus directly beneath where they are currently situated, but spaces as well. You are just so safe when you are looking for your peak opportunities. Kanata nearly catching wind of some tags, but unfortunately the edits are gonna come back through. Cone's gonna be rebuilt, and that's not going to net him anything for the time being. Miro and Pink, on the other hand, though, and not necessarily a shambles situation by any means, considering that, again, Miro being able to depend on this slurp cactus, he's just going to leave the brunt of the task for Pink to kind of handle the surge situation until he's back to fully healthy.
That's right. It's the little things like that that are going to give them the advantage in the long run and honestly help save resources for the late game. And Pink could also use a little bit of that regeneration from the cactus down low, so he'll likely be jumping down here shortly as well. And talking about that ammo count, that is right. He is very, very low. Big rips down as he lands some massive tags there, and Miro pinched between two players, so has to be careful about that full duo for Muzz and Epic. Ozzy hinted at it. This is a fresh duo pairing up right now. Of all the teams that mixed up, right? The rules are pretty much clear. You can swap if teams come to a mutual agreement, essentially. And for the first time right now, we have Epic Whale and Muzz playing with one another, collectively holding amongst themselves some of the most FNCS wins under their belt. So this is an extremely tenured veteran duo. Exciting, right? Exciting to see Epic Whale paired up with the Muzz. We haven't seen Epic find his stride just yet since the merging of Central here, so I'm curious to see, as I feel like Muzz has been peaking lately. He's really been at the top of his game.
Muzz has definitely been heavily regarded as a player where anytime a new competitive meta drops, you know that Muzz is going to be at the very top of it. And seeing Muzz and Epic Whale kind of rocking things out together, it was definitely a surprising switch up to occur so last minute, MDF, but definitely one of those teams where when you see the two actually functioning, it's like the synergy and the chemistry doesn't even have to be 100% yet. All that matters as far as the day is concerned is finding that victory royale, and you've got 5 separate matches to do it. And again, like you mentioned, with players that have so much tenure as is, they'll definitely know the right components that they need to try and find that victory.
A lot of trades happening right now. This is a little box fight here unfolding. Bolts and Bryce back against the wall. Or I should say against the storm, as they're the team on the outermost edge, but they're looking to push back. Yeah, Chimp and Scissors getting tagged up from above and a team behind them, but big exchanges here as Bryce nearly loses his tournament position for a moment there, but in the end they do walk away with the spoils and some of the points there. Vino picked up, back in the game here, all thanks to the hard efforts of Clix. Now gives them a second chance here, second win in this game of Fortnite now. They have problems, a lot of trouble here with the damage. Of course, you have to consider the fact that given Vino and Clix were put in such a bad position early on, they haven't had the time, the luxury to fish for damage, and this has set them so far behind, so a fight here is inevitable.
Bacon and Zooks are aware of it too. Anytime you start to get relatively keyed, you have to expect as a team that's probably desperate for a little bit of that surge threshold. Clix here though, on the back foot, trying to do what he can to escape. Gonna take the flaming boost, but it's not enough. The shots from Zooks, all the better still. Clix's efforts now seemingly in vain. It's all down to Veno and whether or not he can actually try and recover this yet again. But one solid elimination here for Bacon and Zooks. And largely a play that came so heavily into their favor because Veno and Clix just made the play to reboot Veno. They weren't necessarily in a fighting position. It was relatively easy, I think, for Zooks and Bacon to essentially hold them towards that last edge of zone. So it's just such a tough break here now for this team. But Veno, if anybody can get the job done, definitely looking at him.
Take a look from Zook's perspective here. He catches wind of Clix, and honestly, this is all because Clix did make a mistake. He missed the jump there when tailing behind Veno on the rotation there. You can see how one false move, and the pro players won't let you down for it. So, well played for Zooks, picking up his very early elimination there. Here we have perspective in on Dukez here. Laser focus happening right now as they're sitting deep in the storm right now, and there are several other teams around them. You can also tell that the rotate here is going to put them right in between all these other squads who very much likely use that same boost hoop to get to this position as well. But there's no focus on them just yet, so Dukez and Bucky should have a time here now. A chance if you want to get some of those teams that are rotating late. There's one. That's actually Cooper. Very hurt there, but saved by the wall just in time.
Doesn't seem as though Bucky and Dukez feel comfortable enough just yet. They know there's just too many other teams lurking nearby that if they were to essentially try and key Cooper and Kanata in that circumstance, they might just wind up being third party themselves. Kanata, Cooper, Bucky, Dukez, everybody's intention for hanging out near the bottom of Rift Island was to take those rifts for the next rotate. Reet and Ritual now caught in the thick of it. Reet trying to do what he can to escape. He's gonna have to leave Ritual behind, picked off by Paper and Victor, who seem to have found a little bit of momentum here.
We talked about it, man. Paper and Victor playing in person. Paper has played several seasons now in person with all of his duos. I love to see that level of initiative taking place, and for him to start seeing results off the back of that effort is definitely great. Talk about that effort. You have Muzz and Epic Will here to the side of Victor, but no pressure, no sweat. They make it into their new spot now. Just look at all the danger surrounding them here at this POI. It is not looking good. It's not looking good for Reet either. What is he gonna do? It seems like he might be out of builds. Oh, he's got a little something to work with, but he's just ratting his way through as he needs damage. So into the box he goes, and oh my gosh, body slammed by Paper and Victor and sent right back to the lobby.
Unintentionally finishing what they'd started when you really pulled it all down. Not sure they were even expecting for that to take place, but Reet and Ritual now defeated. They'll have to wait for lobby number 2 to try and find their Victory Royale. Paper and Victor, though, that's a massive refresh to get at a pretty crucial time. Play a fine higher, trying to make something out of nothing, but it's not going to work out. Zooks holding it down for the time being, but caught between two separate teams. Rather dire position, and Booga, sure enough, will be able to clean him up for it. Now, Muzz and Epic, they're trying to see if they can create a little bit of space here on this low ground, but they're willing to stick it out just a little bit longer, kind of playing more towards that backside of zone. And
oh my
Booga,
gosh.
lobby focus instantly off the Crash Pad Jr.
Not working very well. The rotate obviously seems like, you know, second nature. Take the crash pad, get to the next side of the zone, but the angle, terrible as he gets shredded up. Now pays the price for it.
Boy.
He does it again. Okay, fool me once, shame on me. Twice, You can take responsibility for that one. Cease and Jack pick up all the loot there. They are going to be the victors of the spoils. On the other side, Cooper and Kanata, from their bad rotation, from the damage they were taking, they were 700 above. They've slipped down a fair amount, showing that they've been passive through the chaos, if you will, of the last couple of zones, but they don't have to. They had such a strong early game. Meanwhile, Trashy and Threats, these are teams that have banded together. Muzz and Epic Whale popping off right now. Trashy and Threats popping off as well. Both teams having 3 eliminations, now edging their way into the top 25. That's a surprise story, if I do say so myself. Did not expect any of these fresh duos to come in here and just start to figure it out so late into the semis bracket here, but what a strong game one we're setting ourselves up for already, but it's not over just yet. We, of course, have to continue to play this end game out now. This is where things are going to start to really turn online. So you got Peterbot and Pollo here, sizing up Bolton. Bryce on this rotate here, potentially looking to go for high ground, but they recognize some weak wooden floors there. Luckily, there were cones in that build that were made out of metal, because if it wasn't Taco, that'd be a completely different story.
Yeah, getting chopped out from what looked like secondary height was definitely not going to be a very happy ending for them. But what's interesting is that Peterbot and Pollo, they're actually sitting nearly 500 damage above the surge threshold. And I had Prodigy Analytics run a handful of numbers for me. When it comes to these south pooling zones, like we were talking about a little bit early on, MDF, you need roughly a couple hundred more damage than what you would typically require to stay above that damage threshold, because the surge just gets so much exponentially larger whenever these teams are able to play around some of these slurp cactuses and whatnot. And with the fast-paced movement that is usually involved in these later zones, it's kind of insane to see a lot of our more veteran teams still doing an excellent job at just micromanaging that surge strategy on top of it all. But Pollo and Peterbot, man, they have already conquered height, and they look like they're trying to set up entirely for just pool controlling it.
Yeah, we just watched them. They were not on high ground. They were actually on the outskirts making their rotate, but between the Flowberry Fizz and the Crash Pad now, a well-timed high ground take. There was 110 builds on Pollo when we jumped in originally, 30. Now being invested into this high ground position. That's a lot, as we have 3 more zones to continue to pull here. So will they have enough to maintain the high ground spot? Only time will tell here. Below them, you have an upset Tekka and Paco, right? They just lost their high ground spot. They're probably thinking about the retake here. Meanwhile, Tayson and Iamzo, as devious as ever, kind of in this mid-ground layer here. Down to the low ground, actually, on the front side. Finds Agers and just shreds him there with the support of the zone there. That's going to be elimination to come here shortly. But they have to make a move here. They're also below the surge, so I expect them to likely jump into a duo, likely forced here.
Taking a peek now at Trashy. Ample amounts of Nitro Splash to go around. It's all about where they tarp to. Trashy Threats trying to lead the way through this mid-ground section. It looks as though they want to go for a layer switch, but one tier above them, it's going to be Kanata and Cooper actually trying to keep them at bay. Kanata, Cooper, a little bit shambles as is, MDF. They really need this refresh. They might even get more aggressive onto Threats and Trashy, because they need the materials that they expect this to transition into a solid late game performance. Paco or Tekka on the high ground now. They take out Cease, and it's all metal cones up above. You have to wonder what happened to Peterbot and Pollo.
What a huge catch, though, for Paco and Tekka here. Finding Cease and actually securing the loot before it falls down means that they have way more to work with than they started with up top. And that's going to be a big come up here. I wonder if Jack's still alive, but Peterbot and Pollo, we talked about it. Where were they? They're on the front side of zone. They actually have given up the high ground. They didn't want to play the build game out. They come down, and they still are very much healthy. So this is about the points. They have 0 eliminations right now, and just a couple of placements being earned here. I mean, we're not even inside the top 10 just yet. So there is a long way to go, and it feels crazy to say that, given that we are in the end game, yet the goalpost is so far ahead. It just continues to literally move here and now. Tayson Iamzo in the conversation here. 7 builds, 3 eliminations though. Make that 4 as they get delivered 1 on the backside of zone, and the pressure is continuing on here. And it is just action on every side of the low ground. Every single team is down here other than Tekka and Paco up top watching this all unfold.
The moment you try to take a wall, you've got another duo pressing the lead charge against you. Epic, Muzz. Epic actually just trying to get that med kit off for placement points. He lost Muzz along the way. Peterbot Pollo back to the high ground. Vorteca, Paco sent, scrambling into the low. Peterbot trying to do what he can to try and suppress some of those mid to low ground layers, and this is the moment they were waiting for. MDF, Peterbot gonna drop just for a moment, just wanted the loot refresh more than anything else. Only has a handful of builds remaining, but this is still a strong position for them to be holding. Sphinx and Dukez all the way down in the dirt here at Brawler's Battleground. They look as if they might be able to actually take this game by force, though.
I like what we're watching unfold right now as Edgy and Ackerman have 4 eliminations, and well, we haven't seen Edgy turn online like this in a hot minute, but it seems like Team Xset is just on the rise right now. Down comes Peterbot and Pollo with a better angle, the indestructible clip to hang on. He's got the high ground advantage and the fizz to jump up to the top, but was it too early? That's one tag. Can he get the second? But no. Dukez, in great fashion, claps back and secures himself a Victor Royale and sends himself on to the next stage.
Yeah, I appreciate Dukez and Sphinx for holding it down there at the end, MDF, because it just looked like they were just going to shy away with this one. I think Edgy just doing a little bit too much of that focus rendition there. He just took away a lot of that focus from Peterbot and Pollo, and it just opened the door entirely. Sphinx and Dukez played their timing perfectly here.
Yeah, respect to Team Outlaws making it that far, but at the end, Peterbot and Pollo, man, smart execution for them to at least retake high ground, get second, but Dukez and Sphinx were just better, right? Just a little bit sharper playing their way through the low ground, and I don't know how they timed it, because with so many teams fighting, it was incredible. But with that, we're gonna take a short moment here to calculate some scores, and when we return, we'll have more Fortnite.